Joining me now, Congressman Steven Horsford, Democrat of Nevada and Vice Chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. Congressman, first of all, thank you for joining us tonight. Let me go right at it. The House Progressive Caucus effectively forced Speaker Nancy Pelosi to punt on another vote on the physical infrastructure plan until, of course, you have assurances that it will be linked to the social benefits package. And you have Senators Sinema and Manchin, the latter of whom we met with this week, continuing to push for cuts to progressive priorities. Yet I've read where Democratic leadership is hopeful to break the gridlock over the social spending bill in time enough to get both it and the physical infrastructure bill on the floor with a House vote announced for Tuesday. Based on the negotiations you've participated in, can you see it? And can you see it being a breakthrough?
Well, Reverend Al, first, let me say it's great to be back on and to join to lift up the priorities that are included in both the bipartisan infrastructure bill as well as the Build Back Better Act. And the Congressional Black Caucus has been involved in the provisions of both of these bills since the beginning of this Congress. In fact, through the leadership of our chairwoman, Joyce Beatty, and our 57 members strong, we have advocated for key provisions that are now included in both of these bills. Provisions that are going to create millions of jobs, that is going to help reduce costs from everything from childcare to healthcare, to make historic investments in broadband, as well as in making sure that we are building back a more equitable society, addressing some of the communities that have been left out historically, so that they are at the center of the process as we build back better in our country.
Now, Congressman, publicly, most members of the Congressional Black Caucus, of which you're vice chair, have been in favor of the president's agenda. Several CBC leaders meeting with the president earlier this week. Your caucus chair, Joyce Beatty, later re-emphasizing where and how much of the social spending bill is targeted to black communities, specifically on housing, HBCU funding, and Medicaid expansion. Still, in a statement, the Congresswoman said there was a perception that black voters are not being prioritized by this administration. Watching these negotiations drag on while voting rights bills fail over and over, would you say your caucus is satisfied or upset with the president and the priorities he's pursued, or, in your estimation, not?
Well, the president has said that, he helped write this bill. He did write this bill, the Build Back Better agenda and the infrastructure bill, but they're influenced by the leadership of the House Democrats and the Senate Democrats. And so with 6 chairs of the House caucus that are members of the Congressional Black Caucus, including people like Chairwoman Maxine Waters, we have a historic investment in housing, more than $320 billion investing in affordable housing, in more Section 8 services, in going in and retrofitting public housing. Through the leadership of our chairwoman, Eddie Bernice Johnson, we have historic investments in science and technology for HBCU colleges and universities to make sure that they are being equipped with the funding and research dollars that they need. Through the leadership of Chairman Bobby Scott of the Education and Labor Committee, we are investing in historic amounts of funding for childcare, for workforce development, so that as we build back better, we do it in a way that does not leave any community behind. And with other leaders like Chairman Meeks, we're making sure that we do it in a way that is inclusive. And Reverend Al, I really want to focus on this fact. Black men in particular, we're only about 6% of the population, but sadly, we account for about 50% of the gun homicides in this country.
Absolutely.
Well, the Congressional Black Caucus took that issue to the president and to the vice president, and they listened. and they included a historic amount of money, $5 billion, in fact, for Break the Cycle of Violence, a bill that I'm proud to be sponsoring. That is a priority of the Congressional Black Caucus, to invest in things like housing, health and wellness, mental services, as well as workforce development for our young men of color who deserve a chance to succeed and not to be threatened.
But Congressman, as I've said tonight, one thing that I continue to encounter on the street is just a general lack of knowledge of what's actually in either part of this mega bill. Obviously, the question before or after that is, what will this plan do for black communities? I know that you have legislation included in the Build Back Better Act designed to reduce gun violence. But briefly, tell us, where does it fit in the $5 billion the president has allocated for community violence? Intervention? I mean, where does it fit?
So it's in the Build Back Better budget, and where it fits is the funding will be administered by the Health and Human Services Agency. Funding will be made available to communities across the country, not only big cities like Chicago and New York, but cities like mine in North Las Vegas and in rural communities, because they need help and support as well. Reverend Al, I met with a group of young men recently in a roundtable to talk to them about this bill. These are young men who, literally one of them, Shonjarian Coleman, who's a constituent of mine, he was shot in the face when he was 17 years old at a local party in his neighborhood. Now, he could have gone out and tried to retaliate and gotten into the cycle that is never ending of violence, but he chose to do something different. And now he's a youth activist at one of our nonprofit organizations, Nevada Partners, where he's actually encouraging other young people to put down the guns, to turn away from violence, and to help build back their communities.
And that is why,
so the funding in this bill will actually go to support programs just like that.
And that's why the argument is that we need both bills to move forward, and we need specifically to tell different constituency groups that were promised that we would be looked out for if we did the right thing. We voted in record numbers, and I think people are just asking for clear answers. I'm not saying the answers are not there, but I'm saying they must get to the people, because people are not getting that message. That's why I wanted to bring you on to give you that opportunity. Thank you for being with us, Congressman Horsford.